Hello and welcome to another edition of Low-Code Café. This is episode number 167 for July 31, 2024. Today we're going to be talking about a comprehensive approach to user notification. And we've already figured out this is a part one of part two. So you'll learn how to create and manage user notifications. And we'll talk more about that in a minute because we've got some other stuff to get to. Today, let me introduce myself. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantain App, joined by Patrick Anderson, Technical Support Manager for Plantain App. And this is an event that we do every 2 weeks to add value to our community to provide customer success. We update you on what's going on with our product. We'll do some demonstrations. We'll do some, biggest piece of it is hands-on low coding. So that's the biggest piece of today as well. We record all these and they're posted out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantainapp. So sign up, subscribe to that, and hit the alarm bell so that you get notified when we post all of these. Our agenda today, I'm going to do a segment from the trenches of support that talk about some things that are going on the product and through our support channel. And then we'll get into the hands-on low coding. But we do encourage you to engage with us. You can use the chat or the Q&A or raise your hand or give us some feedback. Our next, since this is every other week, our part two will be on August 14th. That's when it's scheduled. All right, so here we go, from the trenches. We are currently on version 1.26 of the product that was released a little bit, a month and a half ago, June 14th. And in recent days, I guess last week, we released a minimum dependency update. That means that if you were using version 1.26, that you got a screen when you tried to go to the configuration menu that just said, forced you to upgrade. And so if you're using 1.26, hopefully you've gone through that upgrade already. Once we were through that upgrade, there are some new hot fixes that are available, and I'm going to talk about those, plus some a new known issue with the product that you can avoid easily and save yourself some time. So a couple of things happened in listings. The create Excel from list action was broken, and so it produced an error message, and it has been fixed. So if you're using create Excel from list, it's certainly worth installing. And then we've had an issue with the root buttons when you're doing a listing, trying to you would have buttons up at the top, and sometimes those would render as if it was a screen too small with our ... menu, and now it'll correctly render as true buttons on a wide device. So cleaned up those couple of things. There's a new feature with the page builder menu. If you're using not the menu, rather the theme. If you're using page builder, there's now a user menu pane, and I'll demonstrate that in just a second. But that gives you the ability to add some content up into the user menu, and that's kind of a nice add-on. And then we've also changed the themes so that page titles and meta tags can all use tokens. And previously that was available if you edited the theme. Now we just ship it with this enabled. So that's a good move. And then we have this known issue, a workflow space in a condition. So let's touch on those couple of things. In where am I here? We're trying to do, I'm going to get to the front of our Campfire website and go to contributions. The area that I'm talking about is when you click here, you're now able to add content to this menu. So to demonstrate, if I added an HTML module, you can add any kind of a module like an action form or a listing, but if I were to add an HTML module, where did it go? Get it? Let's pay attention and do it again. We can add it anywhere to the page, and I'm just going to do a hello world kind of content. We can see that it renders here where it belongs. If I use the move choice, there is a selection to user menu. That's the name of that pane. So you can move it to user menu, and now it goes away. And so now if we click up here, we can see Hello World is visible in this menu. So just a nice pane. And let's see, this is where my original HTML went to, and I'll get rid of that. So now I've modified this page so that if you click up here, so this that hello world appears. This might be useful if you have something, some kind of a notification that you want to show to a user. You could, when they navigate into that pane, it gives them maybe some user options besides sign out, just whatever your imagination wants to do with that. So that was one thing. The other thing, and this is one that should save you some time. Just it's easy enough to know. If you know about it, you can avoid the problem. I've got this workflow called trying to break workflow. I'm going to try to break it. So the workflow does this. It says we've got a conditional, and if the conditional is equal to 111, then it takes one path. And if the conditional is not equal to 111, it takes the other path. And so uh, depending on which path you take, if you do the 111 path, the result is 1. If you do anything else, the result is 2. And so it's correctly working. So the place to know about, the thing to avoid, is if at the end of a condition you have a space, that space will cause you problems. And it's, of course, invisible and very easy to avoid. If you know it's there, don't do that thing. But if I now save and test this thing, and it still runs, but when I go away from it, I get this forever bouncing ball icon. And if I were to try to open up this workflow now, that's the symptom that you're going to see, forever bouncing icon. The fix for it, if you happen to do that, is you can export the workflow and re-import it and fix it on the way in. So we'll import it here and fix it. And you just have to know that that's an issue. So I'm going to find my condition. You can see the condition is here, and there's this extra space at the end. And I'm going to import it with that change, and it's fine. So if you happen to do it, it's fixable. It's hard. It might be a little harder than that to find, but at least it's fixable. And if you know about it, you can just avoid doing it in the first place. All right, so that's the trying to break workflow. We don't need that anymore. We'll delete that. And start closing things down. So those are the known issues and the hot fixes that were available. We get together once a week on Fridays, this same hour, to do Low-Code Campfire. So if you're watching this and you've never participated, you should sign up for that. The links are going to be on the link to sign up for it is going to be in the chat here in a minute. But this is an opportunity, rather than a training content, which is Low-Code Café. Low-Code Campfire is a conversation. We talk about the challenges that you face, any experiences. We solve problems in real time, and it's like having a steering committee of people who've been in the industry for years and years, helping you to find your way. So here are the links that you can do. Those are all on the chat. Thank you, Patrick. You can register in advance for the Low-Code Campfire. You can get to our webinar recordings, our community portal, and our webinar feedback form if you want to tell us what you thought about this presentation. All right, so we've saved the majority of this hour for hands-on low coding, and we're going to be talking about user notifications. I'm just going to warn you in advance. There's a lot to cover today. There's a possibility we'll go over the top of the hour. I'm going to continue, but you're welcome to drop away and see it in replay. Uh, but just a warning, could go a little long today. So what are we doing? We've got two parts, and this part of our webinar is going to be focusing on creating a nice foundation. There's a lot to get created, and part one to do where we're generating, um, being able to subscribe to notifications and get notifications created when activities take place on your system. And then part two, 2 weeks from now, we're going to think about how to deliver those notifications according to what users want, whether if they want to subscribe to them and get them once a week, they can get them that way. If they want to get them instantly, if they only want to see a particular kind of activity or a particular client that they want to pay attention to, they'll be able to subscribe and get flexible. So it's all about delivering things that the user wants to see and then doing it in a channel that they care about, like maybe they want it as an email, maybe they want it as a text, maybe they want it on Teams. And so we'll be able to deliver these messages, the same notification system, delivering it in different channels, different frequencies, all according to user preferences. So that's where we're going, and we'll do those in two parts. So let's notification management. So I've already covered my first point. Users get notified of events that are of interest to them using the channel they choose at a time that they choose, and that's what we're trying to do. I have an example of this. This is the pre-built what are we doing, and it just this is the target. This is how far we're going to get today. I have a contacts listing, very simple, keeping up with people. And I also have a notification listing. Let's see, it's actually empty so far. So we'll show you what what we're gonna see. If I change Patrick's address and set a zip code, I have some subscriptions that are paying attention to the event of changing the address, so that when we look at the notifications, what gets built is this these there's three different ones all looking at that same kind of event. Bogdan gets a weekly summary of all of the activity. Patrick gets a notification once a day, and I get instant notifications. But the notification is that the address for Patrick was changed to this value. So it's just whatever whatever information you want to reveal, want to watch for and create an activity result for, and then this ends up generating a notification. So this is how far we're going to get today. We'll have notifications that are queued to go. Next week we'll pick up taking everything that's queued and delivering it in a user custom manner. So that's the target. So let's start. Well, let's back to our agenda here. So the goals that we're going to do here is we'll start out by creating a simple contact system. From there, we'll generate an activity log that tracks all the changes when contacts change. This is, you'll want to substitute your system here. You're obviously not going to do a simple contact system, but whatever your system is, you'll create an activity log to watch things. And then we'll need a notification subscription system that's going to allow users to subscribe to whatever is of interest to them. And then finally, we'll create the notifications based on activity. So as you're working with contact, it'll generate the notifications. And then, of course, the goals for part two is to actually deliver those things. So here we go. creating a simple contact system that's going to have a contact status and a contact. Let me find my pre-built system and we'll get started. Sometimes it's useful to build things in a little bit out of order so that or in steps. So we're going to start with a contact and then we'll go in and add the contact status. We go into our configuration menu and we're going to build a contact. Now I'm going to keep all these things pretty much on the top level menu, so that'll keep it easy to find and work with. And so here we go, our first entity. And I'm not going to pay too much attention to namespaces, but we'll just use the default for that just to keep things fast, quick and dirty today. The entity that we're creating is going to be called contact. For contacts. And this is going to be something that's going to appear on the top menu with no parent page. It'll be on the top menu. For properties, contacts are going to have a name. We'll make that be our display property. Address. I'm not going to get too wild with the types here, although I will fill this in as an email type. And in a minute, we're going to do status as well. I'm also not going to spend time, of course, if you're not familiar with our product, there's a whole permissions set up, and I'm not going to pay attention to that today. We're not going to get into who has rights to do what. That's another topic. When we create something like that, that gives us, by creating the entity, we get now contacts appear on the top level, and we have all the logic to be able to add a new contact with name and address and city and zip and email. But I also want a contact status, so I'm going to build that entity, and this is going to be, the name of this is going to be contact status. Always struggle trying to figure out what the right plural for status is, but going with contact status values today. And I'm going to put this with contacts as the parent page so that this is just subordinate to that. For properties, all we're going to need is a name, the name of the status. That's going to be the display name as well, and we'll save. So now underneath contacts, we have the contact status values, and we can put some values into it. And we'll be doing these values. We'll have maybe contacts have statuses like they might be a lead, they might be a prospect. Maybe a lost client. So we have contact status values, and so now having created that table and populated it, we can go back in and associate that as a property. So that's going to be our status. And it's a status of type entity, contact status. So now contacts can have contact statuses. And we'll merge that. And so this gives us the ability, we can work with this. If we go to contacts and create a new contact, we can create one. Now it has status, lead, prospect, lost client. Great. So that's step one. We have a simple contact system, contacts and statuses. The next step is that we're going to have an activity log that's going to track the changes to contacts. So every time that something happens in contacts, it'll go into the activity log. We're going to be tracking and categorizing the activity in different ways. So adding a contact is going to be an activity, one particular activity type. That way people can subscribe to activity types. And so if you only want to find out when a contact gets added, you'll be able to subscribe to that. If you're in accounting and you need to know when somebody changes an address, then you can subscribe to the address changes and don't worry about the rest of it, that kind of thing. So we're going to be dealing with these four different types, and then and so yeah, we're going to start now with activity log. So let's find that. So in our entities, we can create a new activity log. And the plural is going to be activity logs. We're going to put that on the main page, just easy to the parent page, easy to find. And for properties, we're going to have, we're going to start with two, which is the title of this activity and the contact, which we're going to link that to an entity of type contact. So activity is by definition going to be tied to a contact. It's going to have a title like the address was changed or whatever that is. We're also going to have a type in a second, but I'm going to save this partially so that we can do the activity types and then come back and add that. So here we go. New entity is going to be the activity type. Types, and we're going to make this subordinate to activity logs just to keep the menu a little bit clean. For properties, we have just a name. We'll add some, we'll make that be the display property, and that's it. So having created activity type, we can now associate this with the activity log. So we have type, we add it, and it is an entity of type activity type. And we'll leave it there. Merge those changes. And so now let's see what we have. Refresh the screen, the menu changes. So we have activity types and activity logs. Let's populate our activity types. As I mentioned here before, we have these four types that we're going to build initially. And so we'll do contact add as one, contact address change as another, status change, email change. Those are the different things we're going to track. So any of those four things are things to be tracked. And so when we're doing an activity log, we won't be creating these by hand, but it'll be something like, you know, the automation will create this automatically. This changed. It's related to some contact. We don't have any contacts yet. And one of these things was the value. So we're set up to accept activity logs. We have activity types, we have activity logs, And in a minute, we'll go on to automatically creating those by way of some automation jobs. Pretty simple. In order to do that, we're going to need some users, particularly we're going to need a user that's going to have the permission to write records into the system. And so to kind of keep things in order, I'm just going to get these created now. You'll see us using them in different spots later on. So we'll do user. Password dialog and provide a password. And this is going to be set up as a manager so that he has enough rights to be able to write into the tables that we're going to create today. So we have created. I'm going to create these other ones that we need as well. We're going to use these when we get into the subscription part of this later on. If you haven't noticed it, we have a bug in our system right now where the screen is not refreshing, and that's another known issue with version 126 that we're working furiously to fix. And so I'll do the manual brush F5 and everything should show up here. We should have 4 users on the system. All right. Having done that, we can go on with our activity log segment here. We want to do some automations that will capture activity and create activity log records automatically. So this is something that can be done in the automation section of our program, of our system. And so we'll create some jobs that will do that. So automation just says that there's something that I want to happen, and I want to happen based on a trigger. The trigger in this case is going to be all about database. Something's happened in the database, and I want to do something in response. The job name that we're going to do, and for simplicity, I'm just going to name it the same thing as the activity type we're tracking. This is going to be the one that does contact add. The context user, this is the user that when it starts to write records, this whole job is going to act as the logging user. So this is where it's gaining its permission to do some work. The trigger for the job, as I mentioned, is a database trigger, and we want to do this since we want to track ads. That's going to be a database insert. When a database insert occurs on the contact table, we want this to wake up and do something. The action that we want to do is just simply to create a new activity log. And then all we have to do is build what we want that to do. Now, one thing to know that when you're doing a database insert, that all of the columns that are in the insert are available as tokens automatically. So on my insert here, I can use properties from the entity like name. It's automatic. The name of the added or inserted record is going to be available to me. So I can say was added. The contact in question is going to be the ID field. The contact will have an ID, and that's what we're going to be putting into the ID. The type, now this is the activity type. So if we look at activity types, we want the number from contact add. That's what we're working on, and that's a 1. So we'll put a 1 here. And then for the description, I've started a new practice for when I do development. Whenever there's a magic number like 1, this isn't very explanatory, so I try to document someplace that 1 means contact add. And so that we as a following developer trying to follow along with what somebody else is doing, I don't have to go off and look at what 1 means. At least I've left some tracks. Okay, and that's it for the job. If I save and close, this job is now active, and anytime there's an insert, it's going to do that. So let's try it out. If I do, first of all, we'll look at activity logs, and it's empty. If I go to contact and add a new contact, and I'm not going to fill in anything else. I just added a new contact. If I go to activity logs, we see that there's this activity was tracked. Dale Warner was added. It's linked correctly to the contact because we're getting the name, and contact add was the thing that happened. So this job is creating activity logs for us. And again, just to keep the perspective, eventually the subscriptions are going to be paying attention to the activity logs. So that's why this is so important. So we're going on our progress here. We've done the first one to to capture all the activity and create activity logs. We've done it for contact add. We're going to do one automation for each activity type so that we capture each of them. So let's see what the next one is. Now we need to know if the contact address changes, we want to generate a change. So again, we'll do another job, another automation. The name of this, again, keeping consistent, is going to be the name of the activity. The user is going to be this same logging user. The trigger is similar, but now instead of doing it on a insert, we're going to do it on an update. So if there's been a oops, no, that's not the right one. This one would be if anything in the table changed, we would get it. But what we want is on update column. We want to know specific columns. If a specific column changes, there was an update. So we're watching contact, and what columns do we care about? Well, this is all about triggering when the address changes. So we're going to be watching only certain fields. Address, city, state, and zip. If any of these change, that's when we want this to wake up and do some work. And what's the action? If this is active, we are going to also create a new activity log record. The title is going to be something like the address or name, picking up the name off the contact record, was changed to again, the contact is going to be from the ID, and the type is 2. We're doing contact address change, so the type is 2. And let's put that up here in the description so that I remember. So now anytime we're dealing with a contact and we change the address. You know where I live, you're welcome to drop in sometime. That activity log will get created. The address for Dale Warner was changed to blah, blah, blah. So now this job is, we're testing as we go. This job is accurately getting address changes. We're going to do something very similar for, let's see, the next one we want to check for is the status change. So this one is a little different, but not too hard. So this is a new automation, and the name that we're going to give it a name here. Again, this is cosmetic, just so we can find it, but the contact status change, we're still going to use the logging user as the one. It's still going to be a database update on a particular column. We're watching contact. This time, all we're paying attention to is the status. So when the status changes on contact, this is going to wake up and give us the opportunity to do something. We are going to want to write to the log, but the problem is the status is a integer value that we got to go look up and find out what the word is that goes with that, so that we can produce a nice clean activity log or readable. We don't want to say the chat status changed to 1. We want to say the status changed to lead. So we'll do a read contact status to get that value. The record ID that we're going to look up is status, coming from the contact being changed. And the output token is going to be the new, I'm going to call it new status, is the name of the status item that's returned from this, so that we can now create a new activity log. And the title of that is going to be something like getting the name value off of the status entity that we looked up. And so now we will present the nice name. Again, we're going to do the ID, and the type in this case is a 3. We want to, what we're tracking is this change to that. So when the status changes, it's going to log it as a status change item. Okay. So again, testing as we go. We go to a contact and edit a contact and change the status to prospect. I would expect that when we look in the activity logs, not working. See, this is the exciting part. So we have that. We have a trigger based on status. Status. Item. Job is active. Why it didn't work the first time? Perhaps it hadn't Perhaps I was too fast. So status change to client, we're getting it now. If I go back and change it back to lead, we should see that get logged as well. All right. I don't know what happened there, but okay, we got a win. One more job we're going to do. We want to be able to track email change. So again, very familiar now, this pattern. We're going to do a new job. It is tracking contact email change. User. It's still a change that we're looking for, so we'll do that update column type, and we're looking at the email. So this job only wakes up if the email changes. And this one, we don't have to do anything special. We're just going to create the new activity log. Title is, I'm going to use copy and paste for this one to move it along. So the email for name was changed from email before is the name of the column before a change, and that's, I'll show you where that comes from. And then, so it's changed from this to that. So if you want more detail of what it was, what it is, you can do it that way. Again, the ID and the type is 4. So just want to point out on the trigger, this is telling us that there is this before syntax. You can get to what the column value was before the change. This is after the change. So you can do fancy things like what we just did here, was change from this to that. So we'll let that save and close. And so now if we go and make a change to the email address, and I'm going to change the address too, you'll see that both jobs are going to fire. Oh, hit the enter key too soon, so we didn't get both of them firing. But we can see the email for Dale Warner was changed from empty, the default value, to whatever it is. So we have all of our activities tracking, and we can do just kind of one final test. Let's put Patrick in here. Now, because this was an add and not an update, we should only have one entry for all of that. And so we see Patrick Anderson was added. If we started editing him, then we start seeing that. But when we're validating, we're getting it to the right record. Okay. So we have done our part 2 here, that we have an activity log that are tracking changes to contacts. And so every change that we care about tracking is being tracked. We could add more activity types, like, for example, deleted would be a great one. So if you want to track deletes, we could add a new activity type for deletes and then add a job to track deletes. And then one more thought, the fact that these automations are being based on database triggers, it means that wherever data changes within the system, these jobs are going to fire. You don't have to put it within the form where an ad is happening to track it, or where an edit is happening and remember to do it all throughout the system. These jobs are just watching the database. And so when the database changes, they're firing immediately. All right, let's move on. So now we're getting down, getting closer to the notification. We need a notification subscription that's going to let people subscribe. Eventually, we're going to have notifications that get created, although I don't think we're getting that far today. And to do that, the first thing we're going to do is to create a placeholder entity for notifications. I'm really doing this just to get the menu structure done. So we'll just make it easier for me rather than having to create a page. So let's see what that looks like. It's a new entity. It's going to be called notifications, and it's not going to have a parent page, so it's going to appear on the main menu. The only property that we're going to create is these are going to have unique identifiers when we get into them, and that's all I'm going to do for now, so that we're going to build some more stuff before these happen. But just realize that these are going to have a unique identifier. Eventually, we save. This does very little for us other than it gives us a page, the notifications page, and we can start hanging other things off of that. We'll come back to notifications eventually. So we have this notification placeholder entity. So now we can do some of these other things that we need. We're going to need notification frequency. This is how often people get when they subscribe. What is it that how often do they want to get notified? And so let's create that entity. Because we have that page created, we can use it to hide our notification frequencies. And as we get into properties of this, the only thing we're going to do is just to get a name of the frequency. Then we're going to go right ahead and populate these values so that we have them ready to go. Have three frequencies that we're going to offer at this point. People will be able to either get them instantly or once a day or once a week. So that's a little infrastructure that we've gotten built up. The next thing we need is notification days. This is the day of the week that people can receive a notification if they're on a weekly. So let's build that entity. Again, hiding it under notifications. And the only property we have is name. So that would be our display name. Days, and we can just enter them. All right, so we have our days. Um, to make life a little bit easier for me, we're going to be doing a thing called an email notifier. This is a job that is, or a workflow that's going to do the work of delivering an email. And I'm just going to create this as a placeholder, and you're going to see why in a minute. Basically, the fact that this automation exists, will let us use it in the right place here coming up. So the name of this thing is going to be the email notifier. I'm not going to have any inputs. All I have to do to create a workflow is you have to have a start and an end. You don't have to have inputs or outputs, but we can save this thing. So now it's a workflow that exists that does absolutely nothing, but it is a placeholder and we can refer to it. So put a pin in that. Email notifier exists. The next thing, we need it for notification channel, so you'll see us do this in just a second. So let's do notification channel. The channel is going to be the thing where we can have lots of different ways to deliver messages. All we're going to concern ourselves with at this point is emails, but let's build this. So it's a new entity. Ah, I need a new entity, not an import entity. We're going to create a list of notification channels that live underneath notifications. And this is going to have two things. One is going to be a name, like email, and the other is going to be a notification workflow GUID. This is the ID of the workflow that's going to do it, which is going to be the email notifier in the case of an email notifier. So that's going to be a text field. We'll let name be the display name and save that. So what did we get? If we go to this list and we now see we have notification channels, we can add, it's got a place for a name and a word and a GUID, but of course the GUID doesn't have anything yet. So we need to, it's just text, and we're going to link it up to be able to select workflows out of it, and we'll be able to select our notifier. So let me find that one. This is notification channels. And this is one of the few times in this presentation today that I'm going to use a little bit of magic SQL, meaning I've already prepared it in advance. So let's see what we're going to do. On a notification channels, we have the listing, which you see, the channel form, which is the thing that prompts for when you're doing an add or a change. And this notification workflow GUID was automatically built as a text box. We're going to change that to a drop-down type. So it's a single choice drop-down. And this way we can provide some SQL that will give us our workflows. And so this again is the SQL. You can study this, and I'll leave it up here on the screen for a minute in case you're trying to copy it and use it in a project. But this is getting out of our workflows table the name and the GUID, the global ID of the workflows. And so we can, this is going to return a nice drop down of workflows. And with that little bit of a change, now when we try to add a new channel, instead of this being a text box, it's a drop down of workflows. And I can pick the workflow, the email notifier, that stub that I'd created earlier. So we have an email type that is connected to a workflow. Now, if I really cared, I would make this, instead of displaying this big long GUID, I would display the name of the email notifier, but that's cosmetic and I'm not going to focus on that today. But if we edit it, we can see it's tied to the email notifier. So with that, if we want, now we're setting ourselves up that when we do, like for example, if we decide to add text as another method of, or SMS as another method of another channel to deliver, we'll be able to create a SMS notifier and select that from the list. So this concept of dynamic workflows, being able to pick a workflow and associate it by way of data, lets us opens up some neat programming patterns and that allow flexibility and a lot less hard coding. Okay. So we've made it through all these steps. We now have a notification channel. And so now we're down to how do we put all those things together to be able to do a notification subscription, allow users to subscribe to the areas that they're interested in. We're going to create a notifications subscription entity, and we'll use that to demonstrate that we can pick a wide variety of scenarios. And this will be the last thing that we get into today. I see we're 4 minutes under, so we're doing okay. Um, the notification subscriptions is going to look like this. It's a new entity. And this is going to, again, live underneath notifications, but the idea is we're defining an entity that will hold the data, a screen that will let entry of data to say, what do I want to subscribe to? Properties, what is it that we're going to subscribe to? Well, first of all, I'm going to provide a title for this thing. So you'll be able to, in your own words, describe what subscription you're trying to accomplish. Dale gets instant notification of everything kind of thing. One of the things we want to keep up with is who gets notified. So this will be an entity of type user. So whoever we pick out to notify, that's who's going to get notified. If we're wanting to watch all contacts, we're going to provide a nice, easy Boolean field to say, yeah, I want to watch everyone. All contacts, I'm going to get those. But another way to do it is specific contacts. And so this will be linked as a list of contacts. This means that I'll be able to go in on this definition and specify that I only want Patrick or Dale or my top contacts that I want to pay attention to, and I don't care about the changes on all the rest. And so that's what specific contacts is going to get for us. In the same way, what kind of activities are we subscribing to? Well, if you want to subscribe to anything that can happen to that, then we'll just have a Boolean checkbox that says, yeah, I want to subscribe. Whatever kind of activity happens to the contacts I'm interested in, that's what I want all of it. For specific activities, I only want to pay attention to certain ones. We're going to go in our list of entities and choose that we want a list of activity types. So any activity type that's there, one or all, I can subscribe to all of them or one of them or none of them. But those are the specific activities that I care about. My subscription is going to be tied to a frequency. So that is just going to have one notification frequency that it's tied to. It's going to go out on one channel. So pick and tie it to a notification channel. When we get to sending it. If it's supposed to go out on a particular time of day, then we'll pick the digest time, and that'll be a date and time field. Actually, it's a time UTC field. That's what I'm going to want for the digest time. Digest day is going to be a notification day. And then we're going to need some other fields to get the thing delivered. We'll be using those next time. So the next run is going to be a date and time. When does the subscription get considered, and when was the last time it ran? That'll be a date and time also. The title is going to be our display name. So this gives us all of our, and I'm just going to check the spelling here. So this gives us the ability to express a subscription. And I'm going to take a moment to prove that we can express a subscription, even though we're not going to do anything more than that. So we have notifications, subscriptions that appear on the menu. If we do a new one, can I express myself? Who do I want to do? I want it to go to me. I want it on all contacts, all activities, instantly by email. And then I don't have to pick any of these others and say add. So I can express that. If Patrick only wants to see what happens on his record, we can say that Patrick. See, this is why I had to add the users, so they'd be here for us to pick. Patrick doesn't care about all contacts, but he does care about all activities that have to do with his contact. He wants to know, let's say he just wants to know once a day, he's going to get an email at noon. That's fine. And since it's daily, it's happening every day. So we got a little bit more work for Patrick. We have to go in and say that the um, the contacts that the specific contacts that he wants to watch are on his record. So now as we look at notifications, Patrick is going to get notified, not on everybody, but only on one contact, on all activity types. And yeah, if he really only wanted to watch for if somebody changed his email, we could change this. Instead of saying all activities, we could say that we're watching for changes to, let's say, if he changes status or changes his email, that's when he wants to get notified. So we can express ourselves in terms of what we're subscribing to. And so if we build the second half of this next time, we can watch these subscriptions, return the things that the subscriptions that need to be delivered, and then watch for those activities in the log. There's an opportunity if anybody has questions. I'm going to just kind of do a little bit of a wrap up here. Um, uh, we'll push the rest of these things until next time. So next time, what we're going to want to do is we'll explore a little bit of SQL that's going to give us the subscriptions that match. So every time an activity log gets created, we'll look for subscriptions and create notifications. The notifications will be queued or sent or failed, and all that will result in a notification getting created. And then, and this will be the logic that we'll use to cover how those get created. So next steps after that's going to be delivery, and also it'd be cool to be able to display on the top of the website that you have 3 notifications waiting or 83 notifications waiting, and let you acknowledge them, clear them off so that you can see it as you go, don't have to wait for the digest, and that kind of thing. If you have any questions, now's the time. Other than that, we will close out. I'll wait just a minute. All right, we thank you for joining us for this edition of Low-Code Café. We look forward to presenting in 2 weeks the second half of this solution. All right, thanks. See you then.